All right. How are you, everyone? Welcome to the Best Interest of the Parent Facebook group / YouTube channel. This is Monica. If you're joining me for the first time, I do weekly trainings. I do Q&As, basically whatever you want. You just send me a message and I will probably hold a training on it if there's enough of a demand. So tonight, our topic is super potent, super powerful, probably one of the most difficult. I'll just be honest, this is probably the most difficult thing I've ever spoken about. So I hope I'm doing okay. I'm a little nervous because this is like brand new territory for me. I do talk about this in my training, but there's a component to going live that you don't get in the training with when I do like my recorded sessions, my workshops, my classes, I get to edit stuff out. So this is live and I'm talking about a very, 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 very difficult topic. The topic is all about setting yourself free from the emotional tethers and like the feeling of being suffocated and trapped by the system, by your ex, feeling like you don't have a future, feeling like you don't have any sort of hope. You know, if you're 35 years old, you might feel like you can't ever date again. You might feel like you can't ever land your dream job again because maybe your ex will harass you on the job, or you'll get served papers on the job, or you might not be able to get a job in your desired field because of your custody orders being on Google, which is the problem that I had. My custody orders being smeared all over Google is really what led me to be a business owner. I was like, well, I can't get a real job anywhere. No one wants to hire me because when they Google me, they're going to find out that I had my son taken away when he was only 3, and they're not going to want me to work for their company. So I decided to go into business for myself as a result. So there's a lot of like things that can make us feel like we're stuck and trapped and tethered to a corrupt system, and that our hands are tied to, you know, getting through it. And we just have to like either stop loving our children, which is not an option, or we have to just give into the system and just surrender to the system and let them treat us as bad as they do. Or we come up with a plan C, which is being super bold and empowered and in your power to stand up to the bullies and the saboteurs, which is what I help teach parents what to do. And so I have a course called The Best Interest of the Parent. That course is going to be re-released in 4 weeks. And I also have like smaller workshops. I have free trainings. I have this Facebook group. I have my YouTube channel, and I have a podcast. So I've been doing this for about 4.5 years now. And my throat always goes dry, but I have water this time. So we're going to just get to the question for this week. There's actually 2 questions. I think I'm going to get to both. The first question is going to be all about what I was just discussing, the emotional freedom piece, the feeling of needing to be set free from the shackles of the system, the feeling like you need to be able to move on peacefully from the chaos while still being, committed to your custody case, which is really, really hard to do. A lot of times parents have to just cut off everything altogether and just, kind of block that piece of their life out, or they have to just go into it with both feet, but then they start to get really toxic from all the abuse that they have to endure. So is there a way to be in this without really being in it to the point where it's like corroding your body and making you feel really bad about your life and preventing you from pursuing the relationship that you want, the job that you want, the house that you want, the hobbies that you want? So a lot of you put in the comments if you feel like you're being stifled and restricted because of what the family court's doing to you. If you feel like your life is being impeded by the system, put that in the comments. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of responses. So we're going to be talking about that. And then the second question that came in is about filing a motion to modify custody. And this particular parent who asked me this question has a hearing coming up on Tuesday. So we're going to be talking about her situation without revealing her personal information. And that question just happened to come in yesterday. So I decided to add that to this training tonight. So I'll just give you a quick disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. Nothing I say here is legal advice. My specialty is in health and wellness and mindset work. So that's where my training is. However, I've been in the system for almost 12 years and I have been actively in the system. I've put more academic hours into learning family court stuff than I have my own nutrition degree and my own like massage therapy license, probably combined. So that doesn't say much about my training, I'm sure, but it's true. I've spent hours and hours and hours. I've read thousands of cases. I've helped almost 200 parents now since 2016. And so I've gotten intimately involved with a lot of cases. I used to be an ADA advocate for 5 years in the system. I quit in 2019. I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just too exhausting. And so I've been up close and personal in a lot of cases. So unfortunately, I wish I could say I've done other things with my time, but that has been my path. So let me just make sure I'm live. Let me make sure my sound is working, because I don't trust these systems. I'm on a new platform today to stream to YouTube at the same time as Facebook. So let me just make sure I'm actually like here with you all. Let's see. I got to check, make sure we are here. I don't know. This will stop after a few tries because okay. So I'm here because Catherine just made a comment. So I'm on a new platform today. That's awesome. And the quality is good too. That's really cool. All right. So let's just get to the very first question. So this question, oh my gosh, I came across this question and it just resonated with me so much. I was like, holy crap. Like, this was literally me 10 years ago when I read this question and I was like, I absolutely have to do a Facebook Live on this. And the parent is going to end up seeing the replay. She can't be present tonight, but she's going to be seeing the replay. And so I'm going to read her question. I'm taking out identifying information, and I'm keeping things a little bit more generic than what she wrote. But this was the question. How do I make peace with the feeling that I've ruined my life by having children with this person? How do I begin to have a life again? I sometimes feel like I'm suffocating beneath the weight of it. How damaged my child will be, how controlled my life still is by the ex and the court. And the rest of the time, I'm just coping, waiting for another hearing. Anytime I get used to a current custody order, I end up back in court, awaiting a judge to completely change my life again. I can't possibly make any commitments elsewhere. I can't possibly date. I'm always trapped by custody orders that make my life nearly impossible outside of just isolating myself and surviving. I often feel more isolated and trapped than I did when I was still in the marriage. Oh my gosh. Can anyone relate to that? Oh my gosh, like just reading that, I'm like, that could have been a page out of my journal 10 years ago, easily. So I'm going to be referring back to this question over and over again, because I'm going to pick apart this question so much. Like I'm going to just get into this deep. I'm going to do a deep dive with this. And so with my private clients, we get into these issues, like we'll spend an hour on this kind of question. And so, and so when you're looking at your life in that manner, that's actually a sign that you're evolving a little bit out of this victim identity that you've probably been trapped in. I don't know how long your case has been going. For me, my the victim stage of my journey was 20 months long. And I was a trained coach and I had a lot of help. So I think the average person, I think it's normal to feel trapped in this sort of identity. I call it the victim identity. That's not a knock on you. Okay. I think that's a necessary rite of passage for all parents going through this, because there's no template to heal from this. There are a lot of disasters that could happen in the world. There's hurricanes, floods, sick children, deceased children, parents who've, where you lose a parent, getting fired from a job, like unfairly. Like there's a lot of assaults that we could have in our life, but almost all catastrophes and tragedies have a container of support to step into. There's almost always a random healing unit that you could go into. Like, you could go to 12 step or some sort of support group, AA. Like there's a lot of healing networks available for almost every sort of catastrophe. There's charities, if you've had a natural disaster, a lot of times like the Red Cross will come and help. And so and then they'll bring like mental health supports. And so with almost every sort of disaster, no matter what the magnitude, even like the worst, absolute worst thing, like terminal illness, deceased child, there's almost always some sort of framework where you can go step into this framework and like get healing right away without having to explain your story and be punished for trying to get help. Like I filed complaints with like the Attorney General and I was punished for it, and so like a lot of you have probably done grievances and gone to like the chief state's attorney to complain about a judge or filed appeals, and then you get punished for doing that. Like you basically get punished for standing in your power and trying to find remedial relief in your case. So with this particular story, like with our stories, We don't have that. Like, you're going to go into a Facebook group where there's 80 other parents that are going through the same thing, and there's no like hierarchy of support. Like, it's just a bunch of parents sharing their trauma. And that's like the closest that we really get to getting the help that we need. You can see a therapist, but then what's going to happen is you're going to have to regurgitate your story and try to explain to the therapist the corruption piece. And that's really hard for a lot of parents, therapists to understand. And I know this from experience. They know the family courts are bad, and they probably just treat you like a parent who just misses their kids. Because all divorced parents miss their kids. Even if you didn't have a crappy divorce, like, there's going to be times where you're just going to miss your kids. And so the therapist is likely to just be like, oh, well, you could take walks, you could get a dog. Like, they're not going to get into that real true trauma, which is the government is my saboteur. You know, this isn't a divorce problem. This is the government is terrorizing me. I'm being terrorized by my own government. I'm being financially terrorized. My health is falling apart. I can't date. I can't get a job. I can't do anything. I'm trapped. I'm living in a third world country. And so a lot of times we have to like explain that to the therapist. So getting back to my point. So when I say like you're in this like victim stage, not you necessarily who wrote in the question, but just you in general who's watching this, if you're in a victim stage, that's a natural progression. That's a natural rite of passage to move through that victim identity. So my particular victim identity stage was 20 months. I'd say the average parent, 3 to 5 years easily, possibly longer. And what I want you to do is, if you find that you think you might be in that stage, I want you to forgive yourself and give yourself a lot of grace and love, because this isn't your fault. But that doesn't mean that you're not in that stage. You're still in that stage. So we have to look at that, because at the end of the day, it's still our responsibility to move ourselves through these stages. Okay. Like the 5 stages of grief. I think podcast episode 21 talked about that, if I remember correctly. So you have to still take responsibility for moving yourself through the stages. So if you're in the victim stage, great. That's fine. That stage serves us. It serves a purpose, but we have to move out of that stage. So I'm going to really dive into this question that came in and really pick it apart and help uncover a lot of stuff, because you can, oh, thank you. Someone says, I love your podcast. So yes, I'm kind of getting anxious looking at this, because I remember so much like what it was like to feel the way this parent feels. So let's acknowledge that it's very likely that you're in like the victim stage of this, because based on what you've written. So I'm looking at your language, the words that you chose a lot of like disempowering words, trapped, suffocated. Let me pull up your question again. So we have words like surviving. I can't make any commitments. I can't date. I'm always trapped. My child is damaged. My life is controlled by my ex in the court. I'm coping and waiting. There's a lot of that, like that talk that tells me that you're in that stage. And so what I want you to do is, the first step I want you to take is to acknowledge and accept that that's where you're at. Okay, this is huge. And become aware, like, oh, that's what this is. This is the victim stage. And I just call it the victim stage. I certainly am not an expert on this. So there is no expertise in this field of government trauma. So not that I know. So I'm just going to call it the victim stage just because it's easier. And so what I want you to do, if you're the kind of person that likes to journal, which I hope you are, I want you to like pick apart your feelings, like pretend that this ball of crap that you probably feel it like in your solar plexus. That's where I feel my stuff, like in between, like right near the sternum, the upper abdominals above your belly button. I feel all of my stuff there. And you might be feeling your pain and suffering there. You might be feeling it in your throat, like lump in your throat. You might be feeling it in your headspace. Maybe you get convoluted with your thoughts. Maybe you feel cognitively disoriented. You might feel it in your stomach. You might have digestive issues. The most recent podcast I put out was all about that. And you might be feeling it even further down in your body. They call it the root chakra. That's your survival instincts are all located there. So depending on where you're at, you might be feeling these bad feelings. You might be feeling it in different parts of your body. And I want you to journal on that. Like if your stomach feels upset because you want to date, you want to have a partner and you feel like you can't, and that makes your stomach feel like it's in knots. I want you to journal on that, like write about that, like a couple sentences. And if you feel angry, because you feel trapped, and that makes you feel enraged and you feel it in your head. I want you to write about that. So I want you to spend like a lot of time over a period of days, if you can, just journaling on how this feels in your body. Like, how does this feel in your throat? Like, do you call up your child and try to have a conversation and you know your child's being monitored and then you feel like you have a lump in your throat? So if you feel that way and it makes you feel restricted and suffocated, then I want you to write about that. So I used to feel that way too. I used to feel restricted in my throat. I used to feel suffocated. I don't feel that way anymore, but I still do get the solar plexus sensations. But you can journal on that. And once you start journaling on it, you're kind of like untangling this ball of string. You're just like pulling apart your trauma. You're identifying pieces of your trauma, because there's like anger, there's grief, there's loneliness, because you might feel isolated. You did use the word isolated. You might feel trapped. So sometimes that could feel like for me, when I have a tendency to feel trapped a lot. I just have that's just kind of my thing. And so when I feel trapped, I feel it in my ribs. I feel it in my solar plexus. So you can write about that too. So I want you to like acknowledge. So the purpose of this is to acknowledge, to accept, and to, another word that starts with A, accept, acknowledge, it will come to me. And so it's gone. There was three words. And so I want you to spend some time on that stage. And so you could identify the issues by doing that. Okay. Now, the next thing I want you to do, and, take as long as you need to in this first stage. The next stage, maybe in 2 weeks, you can move on to this next stage, or like tomorrow. I want you to, and this gets a little bit more difficult. Okay. This is a little bit more like, but do push yourself. I want you to push yourself outside your comfort zone and really get into this, because this is so powerful. This is super, super, super powerful, and it will help you. It will heal you. It will help you move forward. Okay. I promise. And if it doesn't work, let me know and I'll help you make it work. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to, this is not easy. I want you to ask yourself, what am I getting out of what am I getting out of choosing these thoughts? What am I getting out of choosing to say that? Let me pull up your question again, because you use some really powerful language here. When you choose to say, how do I begin to have life again? I'm controlled by my ex. My child is damaged. I'm coping and waiting for a hearing. I can't make commitments. I can't date. I'm always trapped. I'm isolating myself. Like, just think about, like, these are like 10 different things. So like, make a list of all this. We have isolating, we have can't make commitments. This is so much powerful negative language in this. And so the reason you wrote that is because that's what you're thinking. Okay. You're not going to write that if you're not thinking that. So these are the thoughts that you have. And whether we want to admit it or not, we choose our thoughts. We do. We choose to think about things the way we do. And for me, like, I have to catch myself if I start thinking negative stuff. Like, what was the most negative thought? I had a recent negative thought earlier today. It was like, oh, I don't have time to exercise. That's like always my thing. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to exercise. So whether I like it or not, I'm choosing to think that I don't have time to exercise. And that's really not true, because George Bush, and I always say this because this was like a major aha moment for me when I started running. I started running in 2001, and I went through this phase where I was like, I don't have time to train for my marathon, because that was the thing. I was like training for a marathon, and like the marathon date was getting closer, and I just got into this like negative place, like I don't have time to train. And I read an article that George Bush, who was our president at the time, that he runs every single day. And I was like, oh crap, the freaking president still runs every day. What's my excuse? I was 23 years old. And so like, where's my excuse? Why can't I find time to run when the president of the United States runs every single day? And like, that made me feel really crappy about myself. But it's proof that our thoughts are, most of the time, they're bullshit. Our thoughts are just little lies that we make up. If they're negative thoughts, they're lies. We lie to ourselves. Okay. So this morning I was like, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to do my exercise. Like, my exercise, it's like 40 minutes. Everybody has 40 freaking minutes in the day. If you don't have 40 minutes in the day, you have major, major, major problems. And so that's just like the narrative. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to work out. And the truth is you do have time to work out. You're just choosing to think that you don't. And so for you, and your question is, where is the payoff that is causing you to choose these thoughts? Now, we're never really aware of it because like you didn't wake up this morning and say, oh my God, I can't wait to write all this out. I can't wait to think that I have all this restrictions in my life and I'm suffocating and I'm controlled. Like you're not actively thinking that. But still, we as humans, we don't do things unless we're going to get something out of it. There's always a payoff to our choices and our thoughts. So if we're choosing to think, like for me, if I choose to think that I don't have time to work out, there's a payoff, okay? Because I wouldn't think that if there was no payoff. So the payoff in that is I get to get myself off the hook for exercising. So that's a big one, right? Isn't it sometimes nicer to sit on the couch and like read a book than actually move your body and sweat and like do the freaking planks and stuff and like all the crap that I have to do when I do my workouts. And so like there's a payoff because if I get to tell myself that I don't have time to work out, then I get to sit on the couch and read my book, which I love because I love reading. And so I get to indulge in this pleasurable thing, which is reading, instead of doing this uncomfortable thing, which is like getting off the couch and working out. And so with your situation, and I'm not gonna tell you what you're thinking, but I'll superimpose my experience from 10 years ago when I was in this phase. When I was in my victim phase, when I had the exact same language that you have in your question, like my ex is controlling me, the court is controlling me, I have no control. The payoff in that was that I had a really good story. And that story allowed me to get sympathy from my coworkers, especially because I worked in an all-female environment. Most of the people were mothers, and they got to feel sorry for me, because they knew my son, they knew that he was taken, and they remembered when I was with him every day. They knew I was a full-time mom, and then they knew that one day I woke up and my son was no longer with me because my son was literally taken like overnight. And so I got to have a lot of sympathy. I got to not work as much at work. I got off the hook at work all the time. I always got the easier tasks. I got, if I want, so I get to laugh at it now, but I got to be sent home first. So if work was slowing down and they wanted to start sending people home, I got to go home first. So I got like special treatment because everybody felt sorry for me. My boss felt sorry for me. I got to do I got to cut corners at work and not put in my full effort because I had my son taken. So I wasn't aware of this. I wasn't like, oh, I love my victim story because I get to work less and people get to feel sorry for me. I wasn't aware of that. But there was some comfort in that, and that was my payoff. Other payoffs. If I got to tell myself the court controls me, my ex controls me, I can't date, nobody loves me, all this stuff, it meant that I didn't have to do anything about it. I just got to sit there and be mistreated. I didn't have to stand up to these people because I was being mistreated. And if I stood up, they would mistreat me more. And so I didn't have to do any research into the laws. I didn't have to write motions. I didn't have to, investigate evaluators and investigate the court system and investigate my rights. I didn't have to do anything. I just got to sit there and do nothing, let the entire court system run itself. Because that's a lot of times that's what we do when we're traumatized. We go on autopilot and we retract. We don't take action in our case because we're so beaten down and we feel like crap all the time. So we just let the court do what it does. And so in my case, the GAL just got to do everything. The GAL made all the arguments. The GAL did all the work, and I just got to sit there and do nothing. And so by being a victim and being beat up on and being that parent that has no control, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to do hard academic work like researching case law. Like who the hell has time for that? Who has the emotional and mental capacity to do that? And so if I was acting like a victim, then I got myself off the hook from having to do those things. There were other payoffs. I had a boyfriend that was like the rescuer. So he got to rescue me all the time. And I got to just sit there and cry and complain all the time. And he got to save me. And oh, isn't that freaking romantic? That relationship didn't last. And so, because it was the power differential was just insane. It was beyond ridiculous. And so at the time, it just felt good to be catered to because I was a victim and I didn't have to stand up for myself. And so there was a lot of payoffs involved. And so The payoffs are typically short term. They're like anesthetics. They're not real true payoffs. Like you don't get joy and peace and serenity from any of those things. It just kind of sort of feels good in the moment, sort of. But after a while, like that identity gets really old. It doesn't fit anymore. And so I decided I had to move out of that because I wasn't feeling good. Like I still wasn't happy. I wasn't getting any of my needs met. And so I had to move out of that stage. And a lot of parents don't know how to move out of that stage. It's really hard to let go of an identity. It's especially when you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, because there is no support for parents like us, right? And so find out all the payoffs in your language and why you're choosing these thoughts. And you're going to have to go deep into the unconscious because you're not aware of why you're doing it. You know, you're not like, I'm doing it because of this, I'm doing it because of that. You're going to have to like really dig deep, you know? And I'm just telling you what my payoffs were because I remember being in your shoes. And so once you get through that stage, and that's a very difficult thing to do, I want you to flip the script a little bit and make a new list and say, oh, we have so many good comments coming in, and I can't wait to see them. Let me take a sip of water. So I want you to flip the script, and I want you to make a new list. And this took me years. Like, you're not going to do all this in one day. It was like 2013 or something when I came up with this new list. So I dropped the victim identity in like 2011, and it was like a good 18 months before I even created this new script. So I want you to flip the script. And I want you to now say, what is the payoff I can get by not having this identity anymore, by shedding this language? Not, so let me pull up your question again. your words, I'm suffocating, my child is damaged, my this. What if you were to take all that language and just do the opposite? So I have peace. My life isn't ruined. I do have a life again. I am not suffocating beneath the weight of this. I feel open and flowy, and I feel light because of this. I am not controlled. Instead of saying I'm not controlled, you could say I'm in control of my life. Like I have full control of my life. My ex does not control me. So take all of that language and flip the script, make it like write out this whole new narrative that is the exact opposite of what you just wrote. And then ask yourself, so just go through all that, okay? So it's going to be like a paragraph. And then ask yourself, what is the payoff in taking on this new identity? What do I get out of taking on this new identity? Well, you can date again. You could pursue the jobs that you want. You could, there's a lot of things that open up for you. And so, but you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it in your core. It's just going to kind of make sense in your head, and it's going to sound cool, but you're not going to really embody that. Not yet anyway. So what's stopping you from just simply flipping the script and choosing new thoughts? And even if you don't feel it in your core, you can think it, and you could say it, you could journal it, you can just say it. And then over time, your words become your thoughts become your feelings become your beliefs, right? Is that the order? So the more you flip the script and the more you take on this new language, you're just going to naturally get into alignment with behaviors and thoughts that serve you. And that's what it is, and that works. and it takes a while. You're going to have to it's going to feel foreign, but again, was the other way of being serving you? Does it feel good to not have those behaviors and patterns and thoughts? And so you take on this new way of thinking. Again, it's just going to be up here, but then you can, what's that word I'm looking for? You're just, brainwash isn't the right word because brainwash has a negative association, but you're going to attract new thoughts because you're choosing new words, and then those new thoughts are going to become new feelings and new beliefs. And those are the beliefs that serve you because your highest self already believes that. And your highest self is just trying to guide you into being in alignment with your highest self. Okay. So that's the next thing I want you to do. And so then, the next thing I want you to do after that, I got distracted by the comments. Let me hold off because I want to see what the comments are that are coming in, because we have some good stuff coming in. I absolutely feel this way. It's almost impossible to work full time while recovering from this and litigating as well, especially being pro se. Absolutely. And I have I feel overwhelming guilt over having lost my case and still fighting, but not fighting effectively. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's like running an engine on like one cylinder. When all your cylinders aren't firing off, it just feels inefficient, and it feels like you're burning the wrong kind of fuel. Like I always use like the subpoena. I always use my subpoena story. I remember like doing this legal thing for my case, and I remember spending like 3 hours researching how to do a subpoena or what to do when a subpoena comes in. And it turned out I was researching the wrong laws, and I like wasted an entire day, and it was just like so deflating. I was like, because I think I like paid a babysitter to like, and I was in a really good mood, and I was like ready to learn. And I remember just wasting half my day learning the wrong shit. And it was like, and I was like, what is the freaking point of all this? And so you're going to have tons and tons and tons of setbacks. Like you're going to have way more setbacks than, Mel Gibson and Braveheart, seriously. And so let's see here. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. Anyone who's pro se can relate to that. But here's a reframe. Here's how you can flip the script a little bit. One thing this is what I tell myself. I say, look, I could waste half a day learning the wrong crap, or I can pay an attorney, $500 to do it for me. And then how much time would I have to spend at work working to make that $500? So if you make $20 an hour and you have to pay your attorney $500 to do something, what is that, 10 hours? I don't know, 12 hours worth of work, 12 and a half hours. God, my math, sorry. So let's just say like you have to work like one shift, 1.5 shifts. That's like 8 hours, 12 hours of work to pay that attorney to do that thing, or you can do it yourself and not spend that kind of money. That's just like, and the other thing is when you do it yourself, you have you have a permanent skill. You're not going to unlearn what you learned. Even if you're learning the wrong stuff, you're still learning something. And then if you suffer the consequences of like wasting your time, and you can recover from that and push forward, then you have even more like juice, because now you know how to overcome adversity and frustration and disappointment and all that stuff. So, all right. I could talk about this stuff for an hour, I swear. So someone says it's time to impeach these corrupt government monsters. Yeah. Write about my ex would stalk any new girlfriend. Ugh. Someone says I'm getting the punishment I think I deserve. That's such a big one. Yeah, the self-sabotage. I have so I don't know if you study like Carl Jung's archetypes. There's an archetype called the saboteur, and I think I embody that archetype. Please don't believe that you're getting the punishment you deserve. Yeah. So someone says the way I look at it. Whoops. Someone says the way I look at it is you're not in control of the other's reactions. Others are damaged. That you have no control over what happened to them and how they are reacting to other people without thinking clearly. It would be wrong of you to take punishment for something you have no control over. It's a positive with your own image, and pray for the others that have no control over themselves or allowed the evil to overtake them. Yeah, that's a good one. Someone says cognitively, I know it, but my heart tells me otherwise. Yeah, totally. Yep. Yep. That takes time. But going to the other frame, way of thinking doesn't work. So that's what I tell myself. I was like, well, I might not believe this, but the other way doesn't work. So, and the other way never serves anybody. No one has ever come out ahead because they chose to take on the other beliefs. So that's how I look at it. So understanding what is within my control helps, but my daughter is not going to understand that. And I should be able to effectively litigate. Yeah, gosh. My former counselor told me to stop using the word should. Easier said than done. Yes, absolutely. My coach says, well, my business coach that I hired, she said, stop shoulding all over yourself. Okay, so yeah. So the other thing I want you to do, once you figure out what your payoff is, once you, go both ways, then you're going to start to gather new wisdom and new ways of implementing your thoughts. And you're going to you're going to start to embody like new behaviors, and that feels really good. And those new behaviors will reinforce your thoughts. So it goes in like a pattern. It's like cyclical. So I wrote something down about this. Let me just make sure. Yeah. So and so what's going to happen is you're going to end up reframing your story. Once you take on these new ways of thinking about your situation, you're going to start to reframe it. So you can say, so for example, you can say this custody case, this court drama, this has been the worst thing that's ever happened in my life. This set me back $50,000 and I lost all my friends. And this is me. This is literally my story. I did lose all my friends. I did lose $50,000. I lost everything. And it permanently changed this and that. It permanently changed the way my relationship is with my son. So that was like the old framing of my thoughts. And so when I took on these new thoughts, I had a new way of looking at the whole thing. And that was this. I went from being really docile, really agreeable. I was very shy. I was closed off. This was before my son was taken. I was a people pleaser. Oh my gosh, there's nothing more unattractive on the planet than a people pleaser. You can't have an authentic relationship with a people pleaser. And I embodied a victim identity everywhere, at work, with relationships, with my parents, with my siblings, with everybody. And so I was that way for 30 years. My son was taken, and then I was forced to take on a new identity. And so my way of thinking now is this custody situation, my son being taken, not being able to raise him, blah, 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 has been the most influential thing that's ever happened in my life, even beyond everything I've ever done. So it has propelled me to becoming a business owner, a speaker, an author, an activist, a coach. I have a career that I love. Everything I want to do, I know I'm going to do it. If I want to hike the Appalachian Trail, I know that I'm going to do it. If I want to lose 40 pounds, I know that I'm going to do it. If I want to write another book, I know that I'm going to do it. And I have been proving to myself over and over again that I can deal with any sort of catastrophe, like any catastrophe. And because I was able to heal from this family court experience. And I remember in 2018, I was 7 months pregnant and I faced incarceration. And I remember I knew I had a choice. I knew that if I kept my mouth shut and didn't use my rights, didn't stand up for myself and just let the court do whatever it wanted, I knew that I would avoid jail. On the other hand, if I did what I really wanted to do, which was stand up and speak out and not pay the sanctions and the things that they wanted me to pay, that I could very well face incarceration. And so what path was I going to take? And that's another thing. I knew that I had control over the situation because I knew I could technically avoid incarceration. You guys technically do have control in your case. You can choose to not defend yourself. You can choose to let guardians ad litem and psych evals and things run your case. You're still making that choice. Even if it sucks and you don't like it, knowing that you have a choice is super empowering. Okay. And I tell this to my clients. I'm like, look, you don't have to use your rights. If you feel like you don't want to use your rights and it's an informed choice to not use your rights, you're going to feel good about that choice because you know that it was your decision. When parents feel like they have no choice, like parents who don't think they have rights at all and that they just have to show up and do nothing because they don't think they have another option, those are the parents that get really sick and disabled and feel like crap about themselves and feel like that they have no control. But when parents learn their rights, like when parents take my course and they know their rights, you can still choose not to implement them if you don't want to. I had a private client at the last minute, an hour before their hearing, chose not to use their rights. Knew all their rights, knew how to use them, everything, chose not to use them and I was like, okay, but at least you made an empowered choice. Like you knew that you had a choice and therefore you probably didn't feel as crappy about yourself. So that ended up backfiring. Now that person's in the appeals court. So you need to listen to me, use your rights all the time. Anyway, so you, I don't remember where I was going with this. Oh yeah. So I was facing incarceration and I knew that I had a choice. I knew that I could keep my mouth shut, say nothing, or I could speak up and go to jail. And I remember before the hearing, I'm pregnant, I remember thinking, you know what? I'm going to use my rights. I'm going to say what I need to say. I'm going to do what I need to do. And if I wind up in jail, then so be it. And I knew that I would be okay. I was like, it's going to suck, but I'm not going to die in jail. I'm not going to come out like a bag lady and die. Like what's the biggest fear for women? We're going to become bag ladies and we're going to die. Like, right. Isn't that like the ultimate fear? or we're going to get terminal cancer, become a bag lady, and die. So if none of that is on the table, like there's really nothing that could hurt you. If you really truly think about it, there's really nothing that can hurt you if you're not in that bag lady territory, because that's kind of like your ultimate rock bottom. So I knew that if I went to jail, I would probably be okay as long as I didn't give birth in jail. That was my big fear. Like, oh, I can't give birth in jail. But I figured I researched my rights under being incarcerated, being pregnant. Like, do you have the right to give birth? Are they going to like not let you do that? You know? So my point is, I'm at the point in my life where I know that I could get through anything, any freaking thing you throw at me. I know I could get through that. And if I hadn't had my son taken from me 11 years ago, I would not even be in this place at all. So that's my reframe. That's how you flip the script. That's how you recalibrate your thoughts, and you become, you start to believe them. So I believe that I could get through anything. My mediator could hit my house tomorrow and I'll figure out how to live in the woods. Okay, I will. I'll freaking plant freaking lettuce in the snow and I'll eat that and survive and I'll be fine. No, so you can reframe your story and choose to make this story the most important thing that's ever happened to you, because this can birth the activist in you or the thought leader in you. So you can absolutely reframe your story. And if you want to do like private coaching with me to talk about that some more, because that's a hard step for a lot of parents. And you could work with me privately. We could talk about that a little bit. So that's the third step I want you to do. So the first step is to acknowledge, accept it. Second step is to do your, flip your scripts, like figure out why what are your payoffs choosing this language versus this new language. And then the third step is to flip the script and embody the new beliefs. And then the fourth step is just to simply let your old self go, like let that old victim identity, whatever you want to call it. I call it the victim identity. If you want to call it something else, the controlled person identity, whatever was in this language here, then you can let that go. That could be a thing of the past, and be okay with it. Be okay with walking away from that. And there's a wonderful book I can recommend about letting go. It's by David Hawkins. It's called Letting Go. I'm reading it right now. It's such a freaking good book. Oh my God. It's so like one of the best books I've ever read. I'm only like a third of the way through. So those are the 4 steps. And I was able to do all this in 40 minutes, which is awesome. I'm going to get to the next question, and I have to pull it up because it's in my phone. I'm going to answer the next question here. While I'm doing that, while I'm pulling this up, let's see what we have for comments. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. The question was really long. But I did say that I would spend some time answering the question. So from what I'm getting from this question, let me just go over it one more time just to make sure I don't skip anything important. Okay. All right. So if I miss anything important in your question, I apologize in advance. Do message me after if I missed anything important. We could certainly go over that. But from what I got from your question, because it came in several paragraphs, it looks as though you have court coming up. And you filed a motion to modify, and your son, I believe it was your son, was taken out of your home, or you lost like physical access to him and legal access. I think that was like the big piece, was that the decision-making piece was removed from you. And that was based on a custody evaluation. This is like literally every parent's story. This is definitely my story. I had a custody evaluation and it recommended that I lose legal access to my son and physical access. So this particular mom filed a motion to modify, right? Because that's what we have to do. Like, our kids are taken from us. The only way to really get them back is to file a motion to modify. Unless you're going to appeal the original order, which oftentimes by the time the parent figures out that they can appeal, the window has closed, which I find atrocious. So again, your child is taken. You find out a year later that your child was taken under like illegal pretenses, and you want to fix it. You want to file something in court as like a remedial measure to get your child back, right? And so the only option we have is a motion to modify. And then in most cases, you have to show a change in circumstances. So that's kind of stupid, because if you shouldn't have lost your child in the first place, why should you have to manufacture a change in circumstances to get that remedial relief that you're looking for, like get that situation fixed? Because like your child should never have been taken from you in the first place. And so what parents are stuck doing is that we have to like have this change in circumstances. Well, what if nothing's changed? What if your child was just taken and everything's freaking the same? Like, how do you generate a change in circumstances? Like, do you have to wait for your ex to, I shouldn't say that. Never mind. I was about to say something really crude and I don't want to offend anybody, but like, do you have to wait for something bad to happen to file this motion? Do you have to wait for your own circumstances to change? Like, do I have to like cut my hair or like, buy a new car? Like, what kind of freaking change in circumstances are they looking for? And I hate that the court makes us do this, because we should not have had our children taken in the first place. And my biggest beef with the system, and I said this in my appeal when I appealed my case, why is it that when a parent loses their child in family court, they have to generate a change in circumstances, but when when a child is taken from a parent who's in a CPS situation, the parent gets to jump through a bunch of hoops and prove that they completed a case plan and then get their child returned to them? So in CPS court, there are remedies, there are hoops you can jump through, and I know they don't work either. I know the system is a piece of crap as well, but at least on paper you have something that you can do. You can jump through hoops. You can complete anger management. You could go to AA. You could go to rehab. You could live in the same home for a year. Often they'll create a case plan. And if you complete the case plan, in theory, you get to fight to have your child returned. In family court, if your kid's taken from you, there's no remedy unless you file a motion to modify, which is crap, because if something isn't changing, how do you get your foot back in the court? And I find that to be a horrible system. So this mom, it's my understanding that, her child was taken and she wants him back. So there's a change in circumstances. And the change in circumstances that the mom was using is that there are issues with the other parent's home and the child is not doing well in school. And so I wrote some notes for you, actually. Okay. And I'm not going to be able to give your question the attention that it needs, really. We can talk privately if you'd like, if you feel like you need more assistance, because I know you have court coming up. But so this isn't legal advice at all. And if you have an attorney, that's awesome. Do ask that attorney to apply your rights. I always tell parents to do that. Like, make sure you get an attorney that will use your rights. So this isn't legal advice, but my concern with just based on the information is that usually, if you go to court and say, hey, my child's failing out of school, dad's home isn't suitable, let's just say the child's bedroom isn't good. He's sleeping on the floor. These are just the kind of things that parents will report to me, like my child's sleeping on the floor, my child shares a room with a dog, my child shares a room with 3 other siblings, my child's not doing well in school, my child's in therapy, the therapist said that he misses me. Usually those are the kinds of things that parents will go to court for that motion to modify. And again, I know that your options are limited, but oftentimes if there's no adjudication from CPS, or if there's no police report that resulted in arrest and a conviction of child abuse, you're basically asking the judge to make a best interest of the child determination again. So it's really just putting all the power back in the judge's hands. And I'm a huge fan of using your parental rights as a remedial tool, as opposed to asking the judge again to make an opinion, because the judge made an opinion already that the child should live with dad and not with you, and that you should lose all your rights. And so I feel like asking the judge for an opinion again is still putting all that power back in the judge's lap. And so what would be great is and this is a lot harder to do, and I think it requires an attorney to do this, is if there was any fraud or perjury or any sort of deceptive stuff that happened, inadmissible stuff that got put into your record that was supposed to be not put in, then you can try to vacate your court orders, but that's harder to do. You need an attorney that will dig into the case. But I find that vacating an order is often better, in my opinion. This is my non-legal opinion, because going back and asking for a modification, you're just inviting the judge's opinions back into your case. And then if all you have is hey, my child's failing school. There was a bunch of things you wrote, but nothing really stuck out where it could get your ex arrested. If your ex could be arrested on it, if you could get the police called, get your ex arrested, get CPS to adjudicate your ex is unfit, that holds a heck of a lot more water, because then you're going by the laws. Like, child abuse is against the law. Your Honor, my ex was convicted of child abuse. CPS found that my ex was an unfit parent, and the police arrested my ex, and my ex was convicted of child abuse. So usually if you could go in with something like that, then you have more of a legal, a legal thing to anchor into your case, as opposed to, hey, judge, my son's not doing that well. What do you think? Can you please make another opinion? Because unfortunately, that's what we're reduced to as parents. And again, the other option is to see if there's a piece in your case that was fraudulent. If someone lied, if there was an illegal report that went in that wasn't, authenticated. I don't know. Like, you might have to get someone to dig into your case and get the whole order vacated because there's something illegal that was in there. And a lot of parents will say, well, that's just a lot more work. But you know what else is a lot of work? Going to court and saying, I need you to make a new opinion. And then that judge has to send in another evaluator. That judge has to get you to hire another GAL. And those reports take 6 to 9 months to generate. So you're still looking at 2 years regardless, and a lot of money. You have to pay for someone to come into your house and find out if there is a change in circumstances. Or another option is simply go to court and be like, you should not have taken my son away from the first place. I have parental rights. I want my parental rights to be applied in this case. I don't want you to make any more opinions about my child. And then if the judge says no, which they will, then you go to the appeals court, then you go to the Supreme Court, which is, again, 2 to 3 years, 4 years. So whichever way you cut it, you're looking at 2 to 3 years, unless you have a judge that is just nice and wants to give your child back. I have heard of kids getting returned on a best interest of the child standard. I've seen it happen like less than 10 times in 10 years. And so I just find that to be a crapshoot. I feel like there's no freaking remedies for parents like us. I just feel like this stuff is just insanely ridiculous and difficult and horrifying. We need to fix the system. And if your child is like 13 or 14 or 15, do you have 3 years? Like, I'm not going back to court because my son's 14, and and I just lost my Supreme Court petition a few months ago. And so if I started all over again, I'm looking at 3 to 4 years just to get through the courts, like get through the appeals court, the Supreme Court. And then even if I win, which I probably would, because my legal arguments make sense and they're actual legal arguments, then my son will be 17 by the time this is all over. And so I feel like if your son is like 7 or 8 or 9, sure. If your son's already a teenager, I just find it to be an uphill battle. I don't know how parents get their kids back in court. Like, I don't know how that happens, because I don't see it happening very much. And that's why we have all these problems. That's why we're here. That's why we're sitting here right now. So, but you do have court on Tuesday. So I just threw a lot of stuff at you, but I did say I would look into your question a lot. So, yeah, I wish I had better solutions for you, but I think at this point, if you have court on Tuesday and you don't want to file continuances to like do things like the longer way, you can just go to court and ask for a best interest of the child opinion, and maybe it will work. Maybe, even a broken clock is right twice a day. It might work, and have faith, and if it doesn't work, then, learn how to be the version of yourself that you need to be to get through this. That's my biggest recommendation for parents like us. Look, my son was taken 11 years ago. I still don't have him back. And I did go through all the legal avenues to get him back. What happened was, in the Supreme Court, the state shredded 17 of my exhibits. And because they shredded my exhibits, they basically said, we can't look at your case. We don't have the freaking file. Like, they shredded a lot of my files. And that's how they nullified my appeal, by throwing it in the trash, which, I could probably sue the state for that, but I just chose to walk away at this point. So, yeah, so I hope everything goes well on Tuesday for you. Let me know how that goes. And I went a long time. I went almost an hour with this live stream. Let's see what we have for questions here. This was a really, really hard topic. So if you're still with me, like, that's awesome. What do we have for comments? It slowly makes it easier to understand the opponent to think the way they think by understanding their reaction to certain things being done. I found that like understanding why narcissists do the shit they do has been really, really healing for me. Like it's been fundamentally healing for me. Let's see. I guess just forgetting my kids were abused in foster care and DCF plagues my ex for 14 years. Placed back in the ex care is hard to bear. It's terrible. I now only have supervised visits as punishment. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I have a training on that in my course on how to manage yourself, knowing that your children are being abused in the other home. With DCF involved, it's an absolute freaking hellhole. I mean, it's the worst thing in the world. It really is. So how does a parent make a choice to live a fulfilling life knowing that their children are being abused in the other home? And so that's something I was stuck on for years. And I'll be honest, guys, I almost closed my whole business down because of that question. I said, I can't even do this business because of that. And ultimately I decided to keep my business open, but there is help available for you, and so if you can heal yourself to the best of your capacity and live an empowered life in spite of all that, then you just kind of like raise like the energetic vibration of your children as well, because you're the parent, and so it's, I do have a workshop on all this. If you're interested, let me know. There is things that you can do to cushion the trauma with that, knowing that your children are being abused in the other home. I think that's what you said. Being abused in foster care. Yeah, that's what you said. The kids are being abused. So someone says, little hint: transfer all your assets and money to your parents and get a state-appointed lawyer. I love it. These parents, I swear, I knew a parent who kept all their money in cash in the gift cards wrapped up in like those, like, you go to like the drugstore and you buy like a prepaid gift card. All their assets were tied up in those gift cards. I was like, dude, that's freaking amazing. So someone says, wow, Monica, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, being pregnant and dealing with all of that. Yeah, it was kind of funny because I was like, oh, I'm just going to meditate every day and I'm going to work on my next book in jail, but they didn't put me in jail. Someone says, let's see what you have for comments. I lost the comments. Let me pull up my other platform and get the comments here, because they're only letting me post so many. They're only letting me see so many. Hang on one second. Okay. Let's do this. What else do we have for comments? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got to all the comments. So I appreciate you guys coming on tonight in this very heavy topic. And if you're one of the parents who I answered your questions, get back to me and let me know what you thought about this live stream. Okay. Very heavy topic. But yeah, I'm so glad you all came on. And yeah, we will talk soon. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll meet up next Monday. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.